Hey everybody, it's Scott Grant. I'm here at Underwood's Jewelers, one of my favorite places in the world. And I'm with Michael Dudley, Justin Shiver, and they are both watchmakers. What's it mean to be a watchmaker?
Well, for us, it's repairing watches every day. Taking them apart, putting them back together, replacing parts, and putting them back on the customer's wrist.
And is it mostly, do you mostly work with Rolexes, or you work with every kind of watch?
Yes, we just specialize in Rolex here at Underwood. So we do fix batteries for our customers. Replace batteries.
So like if I had some other kind of watch, I won't even mention any other watch's name, but if I had a different kind of watch, you'd put a battery in for me.
Absolutely, yeah. We try our best to take care of our customers.
But then Rolexes, are there any Rolexes that have batteries? Or
There are, yeah. Not today, but they did in the past.
They did in the past,
sir.
okay. But they all work these days?
Justin's actually wearing one.
Let me see.
Yeah. So oyster quartz.
Oh, interesting. What year is that? Can you show that to the camera?
So this is from 99, 2000, which is about the time they ended the production. But it's one it's just always appealed to me because
It's unique.
The lines are so different
Yeah.
from what we think of as an oyster model Rolex.
Interesting. How many different kinds of Rolexes are there? Like you probably don't even know, right? I mean, there's just so many.
Yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Dozens? Hundreds?
I don't know. I mean, different families, there's probably just a few different families of watches. The president, or the date, the date just,
Okay.
professional models.
So now, Justin, you're sort of a local celebrity because you were on the news for the Olympics. Is that right?
Well, yeah, we had an opportunity to speak with Rich Donnelly from First Coast News. He was doing a segment on the value of a second, and came in, spent some time with me, got some good shot of a beautiful Daytona Rolex, the sweep hand sweeping and hearing the ticking. So it was a really good experience.
So the value of a second, and when we think of the value of a second, we think of Rolex. Is that fair? Do you?
Well, certainly we think of Rolex. I mean, Rolex is one of the leaders in the watchmaking industry. They set a lot of standards broadly, as far as accuracy. And
It's amazing to think that these mechanical watches can keep accuracy to 1 or 2 seconds a day. I mean, to me, that's mind-blowing. When you think about how many seconds there are in a day. And this is a mechanical device with, just gears and wheels. And to keep seconds a day is so fascinating to me.
How many seconds are there in a day? Rolex was founded in the early 1900s by a guy named Hans Wilsdorf. And Wilsdorf was putting together watches. He had a partner named Davis who kind of disappears after a while. But the name itself, he was looking for a name. And he was looking for a name that nobody else had ever used that was unique. Mm-hmm. And he says that he was riding on a street in London called Cheapside. Did you guys ever see the movie A Knight's Tale?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Great movie.
Right. So
Great movie.
in one part of the movie, he's in Cheapside, and he makes a point of being in Cheapside, where they make the implication that it's cheap to live there, or that poorer people.
Is that where he went to visit his father?
Yeah, that's where he goes to visit his father in Cheapside. So in any event, it's actually a financial street in London. I don't know that it was poor. It may have been poor back in the Middle Ages. I don't think it was poor when Hans Wilsdorf was riding along. And he says that the name just came to him. In fact, he says a genie whispered the word Rolex in his ear. And I think that's kind of fascinating.
Rolex. Yeah.
And so that, I think roughly 1908, the name was born. And it's Wilsdorf's company, and it's his corporation, but ultimately he gives the corporation to a charity. So it's owned now by a charity he created called the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. You guys know that, right?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And you were telling me a little bit, what do you know about the Wilsdorf Foundation? They give all the profits away, right? Or most of the profits away?
Well, that's what I understand. It's either reinvested back into the company, given away, or shared among the employees.
So my understanding is 90% of the money gets given away.
Wow.
Well, and that would make sense because, as we were speaking earlier, Rolex Worldwide, they support several different initiatives and charities, from the art to supporting initiatives to help protect the environment and such. So, they really, I believe Rolex really sees the value in giving back.
I know one of the organizations they give money to is called One Ocean, the One Ocean Foundation. And One Ocean, there are organizations, and One Ocean may help sea life, animals as well. But I know they specialize in one of the things they call the sea forest, which is kind of a neat term, right?
It is.
But like the plants that are growing in the ocean, making sure that those plants, because obviously without those plants, then there wouldn't be any marine life.
Absolutely.
So, and I know that that's a big donation that they make is to One Ocean, and we're sitting here on the ocean. We love the ocean here. So I don't know that they do projects here locally, but they do a lot of replenishing of the what they call this again the sea forest, which was a term I'd never heard. Did you ever heard that one?
No, but I mean, here in the St. Johns River, just down the street, we had all the eelgrass taken out a few years ago when a hurricane came through.
Right.
And that's messed up our fish populations, and so we need some renourishment here as well.
I wonder if Rolex will come, or
Yeah, we need
the
to-
Hans
we need to
Wilsdorf
reach out.
Foundation, or the One Ocean will come and replenish our eelgrass. That's a good point. That's a good point, and it's important, man. I mean, the environment's really important.
Absolutely.
So Rolex, you were talking about the Oscars.
Yes, I recently found out that I believe it's since 2016, Rolex, their interior design group has been going in and designing the green room at the Oscars.
That's kind of seems like, I don't know. Although
That's something Rolex would be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, it just see that you wouldn't think Rolex would design the green room. Although the boxes used to be green. Are they green? They just
They
changed.
still are,
They
yeah.
still are. So maybe have that tie. If it was a blue room, maybe it would be
That is a good point.
Tiffany's doing it.
You
Yeah,
never know.
green is the color of Rolex.
But that plays into also Rolex is supporting the arts, whether it be from artists that are doing paintings, sculptures, symphonies. I mean, you can look and worldwide, there's different support there for those types of organizations. They also sponsor, and I'm not going to remember the exact name of it, but for artists to go in and you have a young artist and they actually have a group that sets that artist up with somebody that's established in that field. And it's a mentorship program that they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think they're giving away all their money. And maybe I kind of cut short earlier talking about you being on the TV. So they were talking about the value of a second. Mm-hmm. And obviously in a sprint, well, in any foot race, I guess, but particularly a sprint or any sort of swimming race, a second's going to be a big deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in the 100 meters this year, they were separated by almost nothing, right? For tenths of a second, something like that, from first to last.
Yes, fractions of a second, yeah.
From first to last, and that's somewhat unusual. A lot of times those races they're spread out a little bit. If you look at Usain Bolt when he ran, or Bob Hayes, who was from Jacksonville, who won in '64, wins by 7 feet. So, and that's still the largest margin of victory ever.
Wow.
Yeah. Bob Hayes is a favorite of mine. I don't know that he wore a Rolex. He might have. He ends up playing pro football. He certainly would have had money for a Rolex.
We'll have to look into that.
Did they ever give Rolexes away to Super Bowl champions?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm not sure.
I know some of the the players give them out to the other players.
Yeah, that's true. You've heard those stories where the quarterback would give everybody on the offensive line a Rolex after they win.
Yep.
Thanks for taking care of me during the season.
What a nice gift.
So they put you on TV and you talk about seconds and how important seconds are. And it was a really nice piece. I mean, I was very impressed. I saw it and I immediately recognized you. I said, I know him. And I thought, wow, what a great promo piece for Rolex.
Well, listen, I had a great time doing it. Rich Donnelly is one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever met, and he really gets so much credit because he put that piece together. Because it wasn't just us talking. I mean, he had interviewed several coaches,
Right.
a track and swim coach, because obviously there's a athletic aspect to that piece tying into the Olympics.
And I think he talked to the swimming coach at Bowles, right? Was one of the
I
things
think so. Yes.
And Bowles has sent I don't even know how many, but Bowles has sent a bunch of people
I
to.
believe they had several there this year.
Yeah, I mean, and have you ever been over to Bowles to see the
I have not. I've only seen video of it.
The facilities.
Yeah.
the natatorium?
Really?
That's the name for it. Yeah, sorry, the natatorium. It's impressive. I go because my son runs in a mile race there every year at the end of the track season, and so we go, and they're right next door is the swim facilities, and they're all training like crazy. So I'm not surprised they have a bunch of guys in the Olympics. So this year we had done a Rolex event about 2 years ago, year and a half
2
ago.
years ago.
And it was really successful. So part of the video is to promote that we're going to do it again, right?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's the plan.
And you're going to be there?
I will be here. Yes.
You're going to be there. Cool.
It's gonna be a good time.
And it went really, really well last time. Last time, I think I had written an article about Chuck Yeager and Sir Edmund Hillary. And Hillary wore a Rolex up Everest when he climbs Everest. He actually, by the way, he wears two watches. He wore a Rolex and he wore something else. And they don't even make the other watch anymore.
Oh, really?
But I think he got paid. I think he wore the Rolex for free because he wanted it. And he got paid to wear the other one. Yeah. And then Tenzing Norgay, who was with him, had a Rolex that he had been given for climbing nearly to the top a year or two earlier with a Swiss expedition.
Wow.
And Rolex had given that whole expedition, everybody in the expedition, a watch. So you think of this guy, Tenzing Norgay, he's a Sherpa, he's from Nepal. He doesn't get as much credit as he probably deserves, right? But he had a Rolex. It wasn't just some poor indigent climber.
That's a good point.
He had a Rolex. Yeah, he already had one. In fact, I think it was a gold one that they had given him.
It's cool to think about all the places where a watch has been and how many lives maybe it's saved as well, when it comes to using them for navigation and stuff like that. The Explorers Club up in New York, they have a few Rolex that they send out with their different explorers on missions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very cool.
And they're old. They're old, or they?
They had some that were old. I think they've recently, in the past few years, Rolex, they got some newer ones from Rolex. And so you can apply if you're going out on a scientific discovery or to hike Everest. And you're a member of the club, you can apply to wear the watch on the adventure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the watch just collects all these stories.
That actually is really cool. I'll have to look into that. I like that
The
story.
Explorers Club.
Jennifer off screen has identified how many seconds are in a day, and since we asked for that earlier, 86,400.
I feel like we should have known that, Michael.
Yeah, and to keep time within a few seconds a day. I mean, that's
so you get
incredible.
Let's say 86,398 seconds right. That's a pretty good batting average.
Yeah, that's if I lost 2 seconds. I'd rather be plus 2 seconds.
Really? Why?
Well, you want your customer to show up early places. If they're going to be off a little bit, you don't want them to be late places. Then they come in to see you and they're not too happy. So I'd rather you, because a watch isn't going to keep perfect time. They have enemies of isochronism is what it's called, and basically there's factors out there such as magnetic fields that will throw off your timekeeping. So it's been a long time adventure or goal for watchmakers to create a perfect timepiece. But we've gotten close.
Ideally, what we want to see when we time these watches is nothing but zeros when it comes to the rate. But like Michael was saying, that's for a mechanical timepiece. That's not possible.
No.
You have a machine that measures how
Yes,
much
sir,
is
yeah.
Is that
It's
readily
right here
available?
behind you, yes, sir.
This one back here?
Yeah,
Okay.
just this little machine will...
Can we pull it out?
Let me take.
So that machine there decides how many seconds plus or minus the watch is.
Yeah, so we will, a watch is not in one position all day. As you can imagine on your wrist, it's in all different positions all day, as opposed to a pocket watch that's sat in one position all day pretty much. So we will actually time it in several different positions, 6 in this case, and we will then take the average of those 6 different positions over a 24-hour period of time too. We'll take a reading of those 6 positions at full wind, and then another a reading of the 6 positions with 24 hours taken off of the power, basically. Yeah, and that gives us a pretty good snapshot to see how accurate the watch is. And then we have parameters that we're to keep it in order to send it out of here. If it doesn't meet the Rolex standard for testing, then we have to keep working at the job until it hits those parameters.
That's pretty interesting. So you mentioned something. You mentioned wristwatch, and so you, as opposed to a pocket watch. So a pocket watch would have been at some point more accurate.
I would just say that they maybe didn't time them in as many different positions. That it wasn't necessary. Back in the day, they didn't have something like this. They would have just had to watch them and monitor them on a wall, and they would have all hung on a wall or sat on a shelf some way. Sitting up in the position in which they sit in your pocket, and that was how they timed them back then. Whereas today that wouldn't be acceptable. We can't get an accurate reading by just one position.
So it reminded me of something though. Wilsdorf. One of the things Wilsdorf says early on when he's starting this company is that he believes that people are going to stop using pocket watches, and that wristwatches will become the thing. And if you think about it, I don't know what the oldest wristwatch is, but there aren't a whole lot of them that would have been older than, say, 1900, right?
I believe the Great War necessitated a need for the watches to be on the wrist. And they actually started off putting pocket watches on the wrist. They added some wire metal lugs and fed a strap through it, a leather strap. And then they even built little metal cages around the crystals so that if something came and hit it, hopefully it wouldn't crack your crystal.
So up until that point in time, actually, wristwatches were considered too feminine for men to wear on the wrist.
That makes sense.
So most men carried pocket watches.
Right, with the long chain.
Yes.
And you say in World War I. That's sort of my thought too, is that World War I changes that. Yeah. So the guys in the trenches needed a watch.
Absolutely.
On their wrist. Yeah. And they would have needed that to know when to do certain things, like climb out of the trenches and charge across no man's land, because they had to do that at precisely the same time up and down.
Oh, absolutely. Timing would have been very important back then. Yep. And by the time World War II came around, the wristwatches for men were figured out pretty well, and pretty much all the soldiers would have worn them.
And I've seen World War I era Rolexes, or I've seen online people purporting to be selling World War I Rolex or era Rolexes, and maybe Tudors as well. But maybe I'm confused. I always look at it and go, "Well, is that real?" Right?
Yeah, hard to say on something that old.
And it's it's on eBay or it's on whatever, and you say, "Well, I don't know. You don't know if it's real or not."
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of shady activities that goes on in the secondary market, and we even see it here in the stores. I'm sure Justin sees it at his shop, where a customer will bring something in for service, and we can't work on it if it doesn't have all genuine parts on it. That's required by Rolex, and that's to protect the brand, but also the watches are more susceptible to moisture damage with aftermarket parts, just more susceptible to issues in general. So it's a shame because the customers sometimes don't realize that they have aftermarket parts on their watch. And so
somebody told me about a trip they took to I think Turkey or Greece, and they were selling the cheap imitation Rolexes. When I was younger and I worked in New York, there were guys selling those things on almost every street corner. And I've been back to New York since, and I don't see that. Maybe they're still there and I just don't notice them. But you used to sell the imitation Rolexes.
Sure. They're still very prevalent.
They're still really prevalent.
Recently, I had one come in the shop that it had the movement was genuine Rolex movement. Okay. But the case and the bracelet were non-Rolex production.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
That's unusual.
so you see, sometimes it gets really difficult, to go in and identify, what is produced by Rolex and what is not, because if we didn't have the access to the information from Rolex, it would have been very difficult to tell that case and bracelet were not of Rolex production.
Wow. So you could tell, but I would have had no idea.
Oh yeah, 99% of people.
They're making stuff really good these days. They got 3 different tiers at least of quality of these aftermarket watches, and some of them are completely fake, and some have partially fake parts and partially real parts.
And so what's the way to be sure you're getting a genuine Rolex?
Well, we suggest people buy them from an official Rolex jeweler.
That's
Good
right.
Underwoods, is that the answer?
Yeah, come see us at Underwoods.
That's it.
So, and this was a watch I saw outside that I thought was kind of cool. And this was in the display case. So, tell me about this watch. The salesman thinks this one is the neatest one. I said, Chuck, give me the neatest one you have.
Yeah.
I may have said coolest. Give me the coolest one you have, and he picked this one. So why is this one? Tell me about this watch.
Well, I think a lot of people like it. Rolex just recently introduced this this colorway on the bezel insert there, the gray and the black. This is also a Rolex GMT, so it tells 2 time zones.
Oh, wow.
So people like that. It's a sports model. You can pretty much wear that anywhere you go in life, and you don't ever have to take it off.
And how does it tell the 2 times?
There's a 4th hand on there, what they call a GMT hand, and that is a 24-hour hand. It goes around the dial once every 24 hours.
I see that
and the bezel
now.
is actually denoted in 24-hour time.
So it would say, for instance, it would say it was it looks like it's saying about 240 here. And so then if we set this to London, it would be at 8. It would be showing 840.
Mm-hmm. See how the hand is pointing to the 20?
Yeah, so actually it is 6 hours ahead.
Yeah, so it's pointing at 8:40 right now.
So
at night.
So
8:40
is it
p.m.
6 hours difference between here and London or 5? I think it depends. 5 hours? 5 hours. So 6 hours would be Central European time. Okay, so it's Central European time. So
this is great for people traveling in between time zones.
My grandfather used to wear 2 watches with the 2 different times. That's how he handled this. He had one watch that was
This is what
Eastern.
he needed, a GMT.
Yeah.
Or
Eastern.
perhaps the Sky Dweller. We have one called the Sky Dweller that also tells 2 different time zones.
Now the guy outside said this was a aviator's watch or
So my understanding is this was first developed with Pan Am. There was a collaboration with Pan Am back in the day. They needed their pilots and their plane staff to have a watch that told 2 different time zones. And that was back for the red and blue insert. They're very common, what they call the Pepsi these days.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that Pepsi insert. Yeah.
Yeah, the red and blue insert. That was, to my knowledge, for Pan Am.
And Pan Am, I guess Pan Am's colors were red and blue, right?
I don't know
sure.
the history of the red and blue.
I'm not sure.
I suspect the 2 different bezels there's 2 different colors are to denote day and night.
Is this part out? This is called the bezel, right?
Yeah, so the bezel is the gold. The bezel insert is the ceramic.
Is that 2 different colors?
Yes, sir. It's
gray
a
and
gray
black?
and a black.
It's a cool looking watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first time I've seen the gray in person. It's beautiful.
And then everyone really likes the Jubilee bracelets as well. They're just really...
Well, you think of that as being like the Rolex.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Is there a difference
It's iconic. Yeah.
It's iconic. Rolexes are iconic. And I don't know if you remember but that was that first article I wrote was
The iconography of
the icon.
Rolex.
Wow, you remember? Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Making me blush. The iconography of the Rolex. Yeah, and I talked about Chuck Yeager wearing one. That was the other person in the article I talked about. And I'm going to write another article. It's going to talk about charity, but I suspect I will drag out some story about somebody wearing a Rolex at some moment in time that was significant. Chuck Yeager wears it when he breaks the speed of sound, and it was a pretty common. I remember talking to you about it. It was I think it was just a day date.
Wow.
It was not a high end. It was his watch.
It's so fascinating, all the places where the watches have been.
Well, you're talking about the explorers.
And these were used to navigate the oceans. Back in the day, they used to have clocks, ship chronometers, they called them, very accurate clocks. And that was one reason why timekeeping had to become more accurate, was so that navigators could navigate the oceans.
Right.
So,
because you could tell how far north or south you were by looking at the sun or the moon. But you needed a timepiece to tell you how far east or west you were, right?
amazing.
Right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, and it's just amazing that people figured this out, hundreds of years ago.
People are astounding with what they can figure out.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just the history of timekeeping in general. We started with sundials, and here we are today with, what these clocks over in Colorado, the atomic clocks, accurate to like a second every, I don't know, hundreds of years.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And then everybody, I think a lot of people use their phone to tell time. And I know, I increasingly just look at the phone. And then I wear a watch. I wear the Rolex usually. And but it's mostly just like in a jewelry for me.
Well, it's almost like they're more accurate than we need them to today, except when it comes to things like the Olympics.
Yeah.
We still need extremely accurate timekeeping there.
I'm going to do some research because they change the timing, not surprisingly, over time on how they time those events. And so at one point, they're accurate to within a tenth of a second. And then they're accurate to 50th of a second would be the next half of it.
So I did a little.
Oh, you did some research.
I did a little research
Go ahead.
on that, and found out that they have the capability to have accuracy to a millionth of a second.
Now,
using the cameras that they use, but the official times are always hundredth of a second.
Interesting.
So they're using cameras.
Using cameras.
But if you go prior to 1932 in the 100, they're going to tenth of a second. That's as close as they can get. And so in 32, the two guys who run are Ralph, who finished first and second, are Eddie Tolan and Ralph Metcalf, and it's a photo finish. And they come in at 10.35, and that was the first time they'd gone to the 100th place in the Olympic records.
Wow.
And now, obviously, what's Usain Bolt's time? 9.519 or something like that.
Oh, I don't know, but I know he's fast.
Oh, well, he was fast.
Yeah,
It's ridiculously fast. And then when Hayes runs in 64, there's some debate as to whether his time is 9.9 or 10, and the closest they can get is 10. But is he closer to 9.9? Is he closer to 10? So they're still not super accurate.
Wow.
Now they're super accurate.
Yeah.
But presumably some guy would have been sitting there with a stopwatch timing them. In fact, you would have had somebody timing everybody. So if there were 8 guys in the race, you would have had 8 guys at the end with stopwatches. One guy assigned to time each guy.
Yeah.
And probably some additional guys that would have been like, you time Hayes and you time who was ever running first at the end, right? So you get everybody's time, but you would get multiples on the winners of the top 3 or 4.
Fascinating.
Never thought about that.
That's what they would have done. They would have sat there with.
There would have been a
watching.
whole row of them right there at the finish line,
Yeah.
all
With
to
a
time
stopwatch.
different people.
Yeah, with a
Yeah.
stopwatch, timing everybody as they came across. But the Olympics, it was cool. It was the Olympic summer. I love the Olympics. I love the sprints. This race was really, really close. This is the closest race since 1952. And an American won in 1952, a guy named Lindy Remigino. If you watch the video, you can't tell.
Oh, really?
You just can't tell. Same in 32 between Tolan and Metcalf, but everybody else is way behind those two guys. But they're neck and neck. And even to up until the day Ralph Metcalf died, he insisted he had won that race. He said, "No, I beat him. I beat him." And The rules change. The rules change. How you settle a photo finish changes over time. So had it been today's rules, Metcalf might have won, which is the first person chest hits the line. They had a different system in 32. It was the first person that their back crossed the line. Metcalf towered over Tolan, so made it look like Tolan was ahead of him. And he may have been. It was close. I doubt anybody can imagine timing a race with a stopwatch.
No. No, it seems like there would even be a delay between your brain and your finger hitting the stop button. I'm sure they have their finger partially hit on the button, so it's even less. But
wonder if you could press the button and then let it go, and that would be the.
But even the signaling from your brain to telling your finger, there's a human error built there for sure.
And then they had video running with a clock on the video, because I've seen that. I don't know if they have that prior to 32, but they have that in 32. So then that could have helped a little bit, but yeah, it wouldn't have been as accurate as today. We just wouldn't have even been close. Okay, so what's your favorite thing about Rolex?
Well, one thing I love that it's a piece I'm able to have my whole life. I said that to you before. I just think that's so cool. I'm big into camping. I have some nice camping gear, and I recently went camping, and a lot of my gear has already gone bad. The materials start to fall apart, and I don't have to worry about that with my Rolex, and I just love that. I'm also really grateful to them for the education. I was able to go to a school that they opened up through their philanthropy, and through Hans Wilsdorf. He wanted people to get education, so some of Rolex proceeds goes to educate people around the world, to teach them how to repair watches.
To do watch repair.
And not just to work on Rolex. I mean, I could have gone, after going to their school, I could have gone anywhere I wanted.
I'm sure you probably could have if you're coming out of the Rolex school. And where did you go to school again?
I went to school in Lidditz, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's a two-year trade school up there.
And did you do the same thing?
I did not. I went to school before Lidditz had opened.
Where did you go?
So I went to a small school in Ellisville, Mississippi called, it was Jones County Junior College at the time, but they've since changed it to Jones College. They no longer have a watch repair program. But I want to echo something that Michael mentioned about Rolex's commitment to education. This is a beautiful working environment here. This workshop, workshops weren't always to this standard. Michael and I are known as a field watchmaker because we work outside of their official service centers. And that I was hired into the industry in 1997. And when I came into the industry is when Rolex really started pushing to educate watchmakers, the jewelers, and the independent watchmakers as well on how to properly tool the shop, the working environment, how to properly set it up. If you look at this workbench, you've got armrest, you've got a shelf or pedal under there to rest your feet on. This chair here, it's all ergonomic to help support the watchmaker as he works. For the first 10 years I did this, I sat on one of the old American benches, which is probably what a lot of people still think of, when they think of watchmakers. And it's a smaller bench. There's no armrest. So instead of being able to work like this, you work like this. It's just a regular cheap chair I sat in. So Rolex has really invested over the years, and I've seen it firsthand because I've witnessed it. I've been a part of it, to making sure that the watchmaker understands the type of environment they need to work in. The proper lighting. When it comes to sustainability, with the proper way to recycle, we use chemicals to in this machine here to clean the watch movements, and so they make sure that we know how to properly handle that and recycle that. And so that is a big initiative that Rolex has invested a lot of time and money in, making sure that these standards are met and that the people that are involved in the profession understand why it's necessary.
That's interesting. And you said when we came in, before we went on camera, you were talking about how much you liked that chair.
Yeah, Michael just purchased this chair, and
I wore my old one out.
yeah,
And that's better than your chair?
It is. Now the chair that I have is a nice chair. The problem is
It's not as nice as
10, 15 years
probably
old.
worn out
It's
as well.
worn out, you know. So it's
And you sit in them 8 hours a day.
and so it's ergonomic. It provides support. But
So
it's just
can
time for
our
a new one.
viewers call in and tell them to get you a new chair?
I don't know if that'd be
Not
necessary.
necessary, no.
Underwoods does a very good job of
They take
taking
good care of
good
us.
care of
I'll
us.
talk to John. I'm not sure that's who I should talk to. I mean, I want to work on getting you a better chair because you deserve as good as chairs,
Well,
Michael.
Full disclosure, I've not asked for a chair yet. So
I'm sure. And you're talking about having to do, work with these. These pieces are tiny, man.
Yeah, so this is a box here of all brand new parts. These are commonly changed parts for a particular caliber.
I don't want to spill them, but if I hold it like this, you want to do it? So
Nope, I was just looking. This is for a caliber 31.
But some
These
of
are
these
commonly
look
worn
at these ones here,
parts.
man. Those are like,
Those are screws.
I know
so
they're
those
screws.
are threaded with heads and a slot.
but that's like the smallest screw I think I've ever seen.
Oh, I know. When
Like
I first got to
I can't
watchmaking,
go to the hardware store and buy those, right?
no.
when I first got to watchmaking, everything is so small. Even your hammer is small, but it's all perspective, So
You're going in the back of the watch and you're replacing those parts. You got to be using tiny little tools. I saw you have a bunch of. What's the smallest screwdriver you have?
probably like
You have your
not even a 1/10 of a millimeter, or not even 10 millimeters.
Wow, that's small.
0.9 millimeters, I think is what that is.
0.9 millimeters. I was looking for a small screwdriver the
Well,
other day.
I would rarely use one that small.
And it's actually 0.5. It says.
These are my go-tos right here, my gray and my red. You see, I've used them so much, the coloring is starting to come off of them.
Okay.
But it's funny because people think, oh, just tools. It's very important you keep your tools in pristine condition. That's something they drilled into you in school. These screw tips, they get the screwdriver blades, they can get worn and damaged, and they need to be dressed constantly. Same with our tweezers as well. So you got to take good care of your tools and your equipment.
Sure.
Here.
Well, good workman takes care of his tools. That was something my dad used to always say.
Interesting. Yeah.
And how hard is it to get into watch school?
Well, I just applied. So I just went and asked them to accept me. I applied to the program. I went up there for a whole day of testing, and they accepted me.
What kind of test did they give you?
Like a written aptitude test, mechanical aptitude test, asking you a bunch of different random mechanical questions. They gave me some portions of mechanical watch to put together. They just put it on the desk. They wanted to see if you could figure it out. A couple other mechanical devices like a Rose engine. They wanted you to figure out how it worked. I'm sorry, not a Rose engine, a steam engine. The little tiny steam engines, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I did.
That you put on like your coffee.
Yeah.
And it starts to work. So testing like that.
Interesting.
They want to see if how your brain is processing, things that you can't see, because there's a lot of problems in the watch that you won't be able to see, but you need to mentally be able to see them with your mind's eye. So they help you to develop that. It's very cool.
Yeah. No, it is cool.
I highly recommend it. If you're interested in mechanical things and you don't know what you want to do, I think you should go to watchmaking school.
That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one. So kids out there's another option, another non-college option, and you get to wear a fancy coat.
Yeah,
and work in a really nice. This is a really nice environment.
Most of the students too, they have a job lined up before they've even finished their second year. Before they finish the program, they've already linked up with a company who's agreed to hire them upon completion of the program. So job placement and finding a job is excellent.
I think when I write the article, I'll talk about that a little bit.
I was just going to say that the need for trained and qualified watchmakers and technicians has never been higher. And as a matter of fact, Rolex just redesigned their training program. and they've moved it to Dallas, and they've made changes to it to try to be able to meet that need. And it's, and I'm going to venture off of Rolex a little bit as far as there's other schools here in the U.S. and, the application process is obviously varied depending on which school you're looking to get into. But as Michael said, my understanding, and I deal with some of the instructors at the other schools, is their students, almost all of them, have opportunities before they're through with the programs. So I would say if there is anybody that watches this and they're interested or they know someone, reach out to me or Michael, and we'd be glad to point them in the direction. Because the one thing I'll say, every watchmaker that I've met that does this and does it to a high standard and strives for that, the one thing that they have in common is a passion for what we do. I've yet to meet somebody successful in this industry or profession that wasn't passionate about what they were doing. And when you're able to do something you love to do and you feel strongly about, you're going to have bad days. But man, it makes it a lot easier to get through those bad days when you love what you do.
And you guys do. I mean, I've met you both before. I had a long conversation with Michael a year and a half ago. You love this. Mm-hmm. I mean, you.
I feel very blessed every day.
This is like your hobby as well as your job, right?
I mean, some people are jealous. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel burdened at all to come to work. I like to come to work and get the watches done.
So now a question I asked you last time, and I don't know how much time we have left, but and you said no last time. We're going to ask you again anyway, hoping maybe for a different answer. Could you build a watch by hand? I mean, it says
it's
watch
possible.
Maker.
Yeah. It is possible. There are some components such as a hairspring or these jewels that even get outsourced by major watch companies.
Wilsdorf, when he starts, he buys the parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he buys them all, but he buys parts.
Yeah.
He buys parts from Switzerland because
he's very common.
When Wilsdorf starts, he's building the watches in London. He's in England and he's buying parts from Switzerland. And ultimately, the company, I can't remember the name, but the company that he's buying the parts from, they buy that company, and then they move to Switzerland about the same time.
Yeah, it's a beautiful business model.
Yeah, they
just keep growing. Yeah, I mean, Rolex, to my knowledge, used to work with a dial company in the same sort of fashion. For years, Rolex and this dial company had a partnership, and they only made dials for Rolex. And then one day, Rolex buys them. Wow. And now Rolex makes their own dials. So, it works like that.
And could you build a watch?
No.
No?
No. Watchmaker is... The term now is associated more with individuals that service and repair watches. There are a handful of individuals here in the U.S. that I would say would be capable of producing a watch, but as Michael was saying, certain components they would have to outsource.
Yeah.
And so when they build the watches, and they build them in Switzerland, I guess, right?
For Rolex, yes, sir, yeah.
Who builds them? Watchmakers?
No, technicians. Even some machine. Some of it is machine done, but a lot of it is hand assembled still.
Okay.
Yeah, hand put together, and in my opinion, that's the true luxury item. Is something that is hand finished.
Well, you think about like Ferraris, right? Like, why do we love Ferraris? Partially because they're built by hand. I don't know if they're still entirely
Bentley,
Rolls-Royce.
Build all those by hand.
And then Henry Ford comes along and just sort of puts them together on an assembly line.
Production, yeah.
And they're not as valuable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great point, yeah. But the quality maybe wasn't the same either,
Presumably, quality wasn't the same, right? I mean, they were building those things. They built, I forget how many, 15 million of those things? Some ridiculous number. Like today, you can still get a Model T relatively inexpensively because so many of them were built.
But it's still here, which is incredible.
That's incredible too, right?
Yeah.
So they're built in Switzerland, and watchmakers do more repairs, right?
Yes.
And service. And how often should I get my Rolex serviced by you?
Well, I think a lot depends on how you wear it, your wearing habits, and how you use it. But Rolex, we'd like to see them go for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, the synthetic oils these days and the gaskets are so top notch that they should be able to last you for 10 years with a good service. Now our work has a 2-year warranty, so any mechanical issues go wrong on the inside of the watch within a 2-year period after we service it, we'll take care of that at no charge to the customer.
And when we do service them in-house with that 2-year warranty, that is an international warranty.
Yeah.
So anybody that's affiliated with Rolex will honor that warranty.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. Well, you can even send it back to the factory with that warranty card, and we are pretty much we're the same. Rolex treats us the same as if we were a Rolex employee at the factory.
We're just in the field.
Yep.
Yeah, you said that. That's interesting. How many guys like you out there?
Oh, wow.
In America, maybe a couple hundred.
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Just a couple hundred.
Yeah, maybe.
So you guys are the elite.
Yeah,
You're like the elite.
Unfortunately,
of
there's just not many watchmakers out there anymore.
Maybe we should go to the local high school one day and give a speech, tell those kids they can go be watchmakers.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about my own son.
Especially
my
if
son likes tinkering with stuff. I hadn't thought about it till just now, but he's a senior, and we're kind of thinking about college and what he should do. I will probably bring him in to meet you. Maybe when we have the event.
Yeah, you should. And
And you'll be there too. So
I will be here, yes.
You can push him. Say this is a good profession because I think Sandra be good at this.
Definitely.
I think if you have an inclination towards like Legos, or if you're a very curious mind. I was the type of kid, my parents would throw a broken phone.
Sorry, the Legos. Yeah. My kid's a Lego nut. Just, of all the things you could have said.
That's where it started for me, I'd say. When I was real little, I was obsessed with Legos, building, taking apart, and then creating my own. And in a way, that's kind of watchmaking. You don't have as much freedom for creativity here. You have a very rigid way to do stuff, but it's still building, taking apart, screwing down stuff. I mean, it's
funny to hear you say that. Well, you and I have never spoken of this, but dude, I loved Legos growing up. Me and my best friend, his mom gave us a bedroom, and we literally had a whole city of Legos in that bedroom.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a shame, people don't know about watchmaking, or a lot of the trades in general, I'd say. These days, I feel a lot of people are
you see people pushing the trades, but they tend to be pushing the building trades, so it's plumbing, electrician, painting. I saw a guy pitching the idea of painting the other day, and I thought it'd be great if you owned the painting company to be a painter. I don't think, personally, I'd be very happy painting walls for a living. And I actually did it when I was in college, so I kind of know. But putting together watches, that would be a whole different kind of
I'll
level.
tell you, I had no idea this was a profession. I moved to Auburn, Alabama to go to Auburn University. I was going to major in international business, and I needed a part-time job. And I got hired at the local jeweler as an assistant to the watch repairman they had. And the owner of the company looks at me during the interview, and he says, "Hey, if you have a knack for this, you might make a career out of it." And I'm thinking in my head, what is he talking about? Who does this to make a living?
Yeah.
27 years later, here I am, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
The other thing, it just occurred to me, but Xander also has a watch fetish. I mean, he has a whole bunch of different watches.
Yeah, see, I was wearing a watch from an early age.
He constantly wants another one. He'll show me, and he'll be like, "Dad, can we get this watch?"
And he's about to graduate high school, right?
Right.
Sounds like he's ready for his first nice piece.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll bring him in either that night or separately, and probably both, actually, to talk to you. Because I think it might be an interesting career for Xander.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really busy back here, but when people come in and have a genuine interest in what we do back here, especially when it's a youth, considering a career, I definitely try to take the time and at least meet with them for a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're busy. I know you're busy.
I mean, I don't say that for your son. I say that for anyone who might watch this video and want to come in and bring their child in and talk to a watchmaker and consider this for a career. And I'm sure Justin.
Absolutely. The only thing I would say is if you watch this and you want to come in, give us a heads up you're coming.
Yeah,
and that way we can set aside time for you, and we wouldn't be rushed.
And then I don't know if we did this on air, but let's do it. You're at the
I'm at the Avondale location.
Avondale location, and Michael's here in Ponte Vedra,
Where we're filming today.
Where we are filming. This is the
watch shop.
The watchmaker's shop at the Ponte Vedra Underwoods. That was actually, you guys, we were nervous starting though. We wouldn't know what we were talking about, and it ended up being pretty good, I think. Yeah. Anything I missed, or anything you wanted to say that we missed?
The only thing I will say is that I'm really looking forward to the event.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about the event. The event is October 3rd. Jennifer's off camera. At what time?
6 o'clock.
Okay, so at October 3rd at 6 o'clock, and we did this once before, and we had like 100 people, and it was hugely successful. I've done a lot of events, and I've had some successful ones, and this was one of the most, if not the most successful. The food was really good. They had a bar, right? They had like an open bar, like a top shelf open bar.
D'oeuvres.
The food was, we said the food, the hors d'oeuvres were great. And the watchmakers were there, and I was there, and we all talked. And I talked about Chuck Yeager, and they almost can't talk about Chuck Yeager and have it not be interesting.
We gave a tour of the watch shop, too. To anyone who was interested, we brought them back here and showed them around.
And I think the thing that most of the people that came liked the most was show and tell. Everybody came, and I was one of several people who had multiple Rolexes on. My Rolexes were not as cool. Other people had some just amazingly cool ones. But everybody was wearing Rolexes, and they would show them to Michael, me, and everybody else, and then everybody would look at the Rolexes. And so that was the highlight.